For more content in production, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Thank you. We'll begin.
Shalom, shalom, my name is Baruch. Thank you for watching the Torah Effects. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you press the red button to get more productions every week. In this episode of the Torah Effects, we'll explore the mystery of the Talit or prayer shawl. What do we need to cover ourselves to pray? Is there a secret we don't know? Did Mashiach Yahushua follow this command? Did Shaul Paul spoke of this subject? Fasten your seatbelts, this is gonna be awesome. Coming out next.
In this episode of the Torah Effects, we'll explore the mystery of the Talit or prayer shawl. What do we need to cover ourselves to pray? Is there a secret we don't know? Did Mashiach Yahushua follow this command? Did Shaul Paul speak of this subject? Let's start with number 15 to 37-38. And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, and you shall say to them that they shall make themselves tzitzits, fringes on the corners of their garments, for their generations, and they shall put a thread of blue with the fringe of each corner. Now, we have some clues. Let's see what the meaning of the word tzitzits, shall we? Transliteration, tzitz. Definition, wings, blossom, flower. This implies that we are in constant reminder of Yahweh's commands to our Agil Almighty when we see the tzitzits fringes on our clothing. Thus we become like a tree that bears fruit. Psalms 1 verses 1 to 3. Blessed is the man who has not walked in the counsel of the wicked, and has not stood in the way of sinners, and has not sat in the seat of scorners. But his delight is only in the Torah of Yahweh, and he meditates in his Torah day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivulets of waters, which will give its fruit in its seasons, and its leaf will not wither, and all which he does will prosper. Here we see a perfect example of Yahweh's Torah should be every day of our life. Question: what is the purpose of a tree? The purpose is to bear fruit. In the same way, we are expected to observe the commandments of Yahweh, not because we have to, but rather because we love Yahweh our Creator. Number 1539. And I shall be to you for its tzitzits fringe, that you may look on it and remember all the commandments of Yahweh, and do them. Yahushua Mashiach was in accord to the Torah when he said this. Matthew 7 verse 16. From their fruits you shall know them. Do they gather grapes from thorns, or figs from thistles? Do we know any example of the fruits Yahushua Mashiach spoke of? Ephesians 5 verse 9. For the fruit of the Spirit is in all goodness and righteousness and truth. The Torah also speaks of the blue cord called Tekeleth. Transliteration, Tekeleth. Definition, blue, purple dye. This is well known as hilazon, conchiferous marine animal, the blue blood of which was used for dyeing the blue cord of the tzitzit. This marine shell disappeared about 2,000 years ago and miraculously appeared in 1998. The blue color used to dye the garments of the Kohanim or priests was crucial, and it was a reflection of the Shemayim heavens. Now let's make it crystal clear. The Roman Vatican's priesthood has its garments and coloring that even the book of Revelation speaks of it. Revelation 17 verse 4. And the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet, and being gilded with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominations and unclean things of her fornication. If you noticed how Yohanan describes the woman or entity wearing all sorts of colors except for one color, do you know what it is? You guessed it, is the teklet, the blue color. The teklet is the Torah of Yahweh, which this woman does not possess. Exo 25:4. And teklet, blue cord, and purple, and crimson, and fine linen, and goat's hair. Now let's talk about the Talit prayer shawl. The tzitzits were tied in the corners of the garments. Number 1538. Speak to the sons of Israel, and you shall say to them that they shall make themselves fringes on the corners of their garments. Transliteration, kanaf. Definition, wing, extremity, corner. Every Talit carries its tzitzits, fulfilling the Torah. In ancient times, when our fathers were in the wilderness, Yahweh spoke to Moses about what kind of garments were to wear as far as the tzitzits and the talit. The design was longer than the traditional talit we wear today. Let's look for more evidence in the Hebrew scriptures, shall we? 1 Kings 19 verse 19. And he left there and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, and he was plowing. 12 pairs were before him, and he was with the 12th. And Elijah passed over to him, and threw his robe upon him. Elijah the prophet, before he descended to the heavens, he left his talith to his servant Elisha. Transliteration, Adareth. Definition, a cloak, garment, mantle, robe. Let's look for more clues. 1 Kings 19 verses 12 to 13. And after the earthquake was a fire, but Yahweh was not in the fire. And after the fire came a voice which was a small whisper. And it happened when Elijah heard, he wrapped his face in his robe and went out and stood at the cave opening. And, behold, a voice came to him, and it said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Here we see Elijah, perceiving the presence of Yahweh Tsabaoth. He needed to cover himself for respect and fear. Let's look for more evidence. 1 Samuel 24 verse 4. And David's men said to him, "Behold, the day of which Yahweh said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, and you shall do to him as it is good in your eyes." But David rose up and quietly cut off the canaf tassel of Shaul's robe. King Shaul, as king of Israel, following the command of Yahweh, was wearing the Talit prayer shawl and tzitzits. David cut the corner where the tzitzits were attached. Let's look for more evidence. Ruth 3 verse 9. And he said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I am your handmaid Ruth, and you shall spread your canaf tzitzits corner over your handmaid, for you are a kinsman redeemer." Ruth is the foreshadowing of Yisrael, and Boaz is the foreshadowing of Mashiach Yahushua. Now let's go to the 1st century. What about Mashiach Yahushua? Did he wear the talith? Matthew 4 verse 9. And he said unto him, "All these things I will give thee, if thou wilt uncover thy head unto me." Here Mashiach went to the wilderness to pray and fast. If we connect to the Hebrew culture, we will understand Yahushua as a Torah-observant Jew while wearing the talith. Satan commanded him to remove his covering, signifying the authority and protection of Yahweh. Let's look for more evidence in the 1st century, shall we? Mark 5 verse 41. And taking hold of the child's hand, he said to her, Talit kumi, which is, translated, in Hebrew, "Little girl under the talith, arise." Question. Jews living in Jerusalem in the 1st century, were they aware that Mashiach's healing of his canaf, wings, is one of his signs? Matthew 9 verses 20 to 21. And behold, a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years came near behind him, and touched the tzitzits fringes of his robe. For she said within herself, "If only I shall touch his robe, I will be cured." Although this may look like an isolated incident, this was not the only time people wanted to touch his tzitzits tassels. Matthew 14 verses 35 to 36. And recognizing him, the men of that place sent to all that region, and brought to him all those badly ill, and they begged him that they might touch the tzitzits fringes of his robe, and as many as touched were cured. Now let's talk about the Christian arena, and how it's been for centuries, because the Vatican has been conditioning the believers and twisting the scriptures so believers would not accept the Hebrew roots of our fathers. Now let's understand this. Paul mentioned something that had stirred the Christian world. He said this, 1 Corinthians 11 verse 4, "Every man praying or prophesying, having anything down over his head shames his head." Transliteration, kata. Definition, down, against, over against. We need to understand who he is writing the letter to. Additionally, Corinth was closely linked to pagan beliefs and practices. One of them was male prostitution. The 1,000 cult prostitutes at the Aphrodite temple in Corinth are the most frequently cited example. 1 Corinthians 11 verse 7, "For truly a man ought not to have the head covered, being the image and kabod esteem of Yahweh. But woman is the esteem of man." Transliteration, katakalupto. Definition, to cover up, veil, cover the head. Let's look for more evidence, shall we? Genesis 38 verse 15. "And Judah saw her, and he thought her to be a harlot because she had veiled her face." Here we find the word, kaza, the same equivalent word for katakalupto. This means just as Tamar covered their face with a veil, the same were the men were prostitutes in the pagan temples of Corinth. Paul exhort the male believers to be careful not to follow these pagan practices. This has nothing to do with the talith prayer shawl cover. Let's look through the lens of history in many cultures and how the talith has been transformed from the original to something similar. From the Native Americans to Mexico and other American countries, the talith has left its mark whether we accept it or not. Now let's put the pieces together, shall we? Let's take a look at the Judean traditional funeral in the 1st century with talith. John 19 verse 40, "Then they took the body of Yahushua and bound it in linens, with the spices, as is usual with the Jews in burying. This linens was the talit that person wore when he was alive. This practice is being done today. Another thing, when Mashiach Yahushua was risen, inside the tomb the talit prayer shawl was folded, indicating that Mashiach Yahushua was alive. John 20 verse 7, and the napkin that was upon his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but apart, having been folded up, in one place. The talit is being used in many forms, even in visions. Act 10:9-11. And on the morrow, as these are proceeding on the way, and are drawing nigh to the city, Peter went up upon the housetop to pray, about the 6th hour, and he became very hungry, and wished to eat. And they making ready, there fell upon him a trance, and he doth behold the heaven opened, and descending unto him a certain vessel, as a great sheet, bound at the four corners, and let down upon the earth. The vision that Shimon Peter had was a talit prayer shawl, and on top of it there was all sorts of animals, clean and unclean. Mashiach revealed to him that not just Jews or the southern kingdom was called to salvation, but also the northern kingdom, house of Yisrael, Ephraim. Zechariah 8 verse 23, so says Yahweh Tsebaot, in those days 10 men out of all languages of the nations shall take hold, and will seize kanaf tzitzits of the garment of a man, a Jew, saying, Let us go with you, for we have heard that a Jill Almighty is with you. These 10 men are the 10 lost tribes, the house of Yisrael.
Shalom, shalom, wow, what do you think? That was incredible. In this journey to find treasures, today, we figured out the mystery of the Talit prayer shawl. Now we know the importance of wearing the protection of Yahweh, especially when we are in an intimate moment with Kadosh Baruchu Yahweh Tsabaot. Here on this channel, we've taken the task every time to bring you exciting conferences in this channel, the Torah Effects. Please give us a like and subscribe, so you can get the latest video production. Thank you. Until next time, my name is Baruch. Shalom, shalom.
Toda Rabba. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. There's more content in production. Thank you.